cool to see a female black. You know, she's half black, not fully black, but it'll be cool to see a black president,
Western Indian,
female black president. But I'm definitely voting for Trump.
Let me tell you something. She tries to get the black vote because if you look at her past things and maybe 10, 15 years ago when she's in interviews, she identifies as West Indian.
She does.
The only way that she's identified as African American is right now, right now, because she wants the voters, but she doesn't give a because where was she at? In these past 4 years, and she's vice president, what has she done for us?
She have not.
Can you say one thing that
I didn't even know she was the vice president?
Can we say what she has done?
Let's go, Trump.
And I am going to stand on Trump, and I'm so sorry if that may ruffle people's feathers, but I have done my own research, and Trump has done a lot for us, more than what the media tries to portray. They're getting all our favorite rappers. They're having Megan Thee Stallion twerk and all of that to gain because they think that that's going to make us vote for them. And that's not.
And that never got my vote.
And that will never get my vote. And I'm going to stand on that. Twerking
did not get my vote.
Meg Thee Stallion, first off, the song that she was even saying is very ignorant. And let me just say one thing. Chicago's trying to clean up all the streets so they can have Kamala come into town. Like, we don't have a lot of killing out here. Like, all of these streets right now on Michigan Avenue are not safe. Let's talk about that. But you guys want to clean that up. You want to board buildings up. You want to board businesses up when Kamala comes into town to make it act like Chicago is safe, and it's not.
And do you think there's anything that makes Kamala qualified to become the next president?
I don't think anything, because things that made her qualify when she was a prosecutor that had evidence to get people off of death row, she didn't give a fuck about it.
All right, my friends, thanks for joining me. J.R. Dukes at your service. That was a video clip from a young man that's outside the actual DNC in Chicago, Illinois right now, and he's talking to some voters right on the street. And as you can see, these particular voters are definitely not Kamala Harris supporters. Friends, no matter what you hear, no matter what you see in these polls, don't believe them. Like I've been talking about for quite some time on this channel, these polls are crooked. These polls are wrong. These polls are being manipulated. This is clearly another example of election interference on its face. I want to take a quick second to welcome all of my free-minded friends. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. First thing I want to talk about today is there is this new poll that has millions of votes. In this particular poll, it's on the X platform. It was put on here by Elon Musk, and as you can see on your screen right there, 73.6% for Donald Trump, 26.4% for Kamala Harris. You're talking 5.3 million votes. Now, I have to admit that this particular poll is not exactly scientific, but as I've been talking about on my channel for quite some time now, this is a very good indication of exactly what the state of their race is as of right now. What you see on your screen right now is exactly what's going on in downtown Chicago. This is from last night. The Democrats would like us all to believe that, hey, we don't need police. We don't need a lot of police on the streets. In Kamala Harris's own words, she's like, hey, putting additional police on the street does not stop crime. But you can see they do not practice what they preach. They have flooded the streets of Chicago with police officers, and they are doing a fairly good job at maintaining security. It's always humorous to me how the Democrats on one hand can say, hey, listen, you don't need to do this. But then on the other hand, they do exactly what they preach against. And this is another example. From the last night DNC, we have had a lot of speakers come forward. Specifically, you have Michelle Obama and her husband, Barack Obama. They had a lot to say. They were definitely on the attack against Donald Trump. And to me, at least, it's always interesting to hear the lies that they spew. You have Michelle Obama saying, until recently, she had a deep pit in her stomach, a palpable sense of dread. How about that? Until their brand of Democratic elites conspired to boot Crooked Joe off the ticket, aka a de facto coup.
Until recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings, that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future.
Isn't that interesting? She's upset. Things are not right. Well, guess who's been in office for the last 3.5, almost 4 years now? It has not been Donald Trump. It's been her own party, the Democrats. I like this particular video here from last night. You have the Democrats chanting, do something, do something. I wonder who's been in power again for the last 3.5 years, huh? Interesting. So here's Michelle Obama. Again, these woke Democrats, they always have two different versions of life. And she's basically saying it's upsetting, it's ridiculous that you take more than you need. She's saying that her parents would never do that. Yet this is a woman that lives in a $70 million home, and they own homes all over the United States. They are very, to put it mildly. Let's take a quick peek at this.
Didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning. So my mother volunteered at the local school.
That's exactly the way communists, fascists, socialists think. They believe that if you make something of yourself, you do something with your life, you make a profit, that basically you're obligated to share it or give it to the state, because without the state, you would not have made anything in your life. And it's your highest duty as a patriot, as a citizen of whatever socialist country you're part of, that you need to go ahead and share your wealth with everybody. And that is so false. And folks, it just doesn't work. On your screen is a quote that was directly from Barack Hussein Obama talking about Joe Biden. He says, "Don't underestimate Joe's ability to F things up." Barack Hussein Obama. This particular quote from Barack Obama is kind of interesting to me. He's complaining, oh, it's these evil Republicans that are playing on people's fears and their cynicism, and we need to not buy into this. The irony is palpable, and it's very clear what's going on here. And that is, again, folks, they say one thing and they don't practice what they preach. Let's take a listen to what former President Obama has to say.
Knows it's easier to play on people's fears and cynicism. Always has been. They will tell you that government is inherently corrupt, that sacrifice and generosity are for suckers. Knows.
Okay, again, with the lawfare, these people are the author of lawfare. They are people that make a hobby out of dividing people, despite what they say, like President Joe Biden in his acceptance speech saying, hey, I'm going to bring together all Americans. I'm going to be a president for all Americans. And that never materialized. He is clearly our divider in chief. You remember the Democrats constantly hammering former President Donald Trump because children were separated from their families? Well, guess what? It just came out in a breaking news piece that the government has just disclosed that just over 291,000 children that came into our country are missing. They are literally missing.
We can secure our borders without tearing kids away from their parents.
And of course, they don't practice what they preach. In this clip, he is hammering former President Donald Trump for allegedly tearing families apart, yet the Biden administration themselves has failed to protect 291,000 children plus. Here you have Barack Hussein Obama lavishly praising Joe Biden, praising his smarts, his experience, and his empathy and his decency after leading a coup against him that we all saw firsthand. Now, they're in denial about what happened, but clearly this was nothing short of a coup. And our president here, former President Barack Obama, wants to spin things in a light the most favor to himself. Here's what he had to say.
Joe and I come from different backgrounds, but we became brothers. And as we worked together for 8, sometimes pretty tough years, what I came to admire most about Joe wasn't just his smarts, his experience, it was his empathy and his decency.
I'm sure these two presidents, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, just have a regular love fest between each other. Even though Joe Biden is seriously impaired, he knows that Barack Obama, along with Nancy Pelosi and others, stabbed him in the back and literally took the presidency away from him. And of course, in another breaking news story, Kamala Harris has decided that she's not going to have a debate with Donald Trump on Fox News as they were originally trying to negotiate. And remember, Harris was saying, if you got something to say it to my face. Well, he's got a lot to say, and she won't let him say it to her face. She just backed out of this Fox News debate. And in this News Nation clip, they're going to talk about it and bring her to task on her failure.
Yeah, to entertain a serious question from any member of the news media. She has not sat down for an interview, and it has been a month since she became the presumed nominee. Of course, with that kind of free ride, nothing but promotional videos and promotional news stories being printed in every newspaper around the country and on most every national television network, of course her numbers are going to be inflated. But you're going to see that come back down to earth. The first time anyone lays a glove on her, she doesn't know what to do.
I think he's exactly right. Her recent speech concerning her economic plan, the little bit of information she has came forward with, is going to end up probably being a very major negative for her, because she's going to have to now defend against price controls, about going after grocery companies because of their excessive profits when they only make 1 to 3% margin. Now these places are going to have to hire attorneys or whatever to try to defend them, God forbid, if she becomes president, on top of all the other problems that they have. Price controls do not work. It is nothing but socialism, and we need not drink that Kool-Aid. And friends, you know how these Democrats, these woke liberal Democrats, these radicals, they're always hammering us on taking care of the climate and what I call this Green New scam. I'm sorry, the Green New Deal. They preach to us how we should be conserving, not using energy, not eating red meat, not doing this, not doing that. Again, they don't practice what they preach to each and every one of us. Here's a clip right here. CNN reporting Kamala Harris had her plane circle for an extra 15 minutes so she could watch her husband at the DNC give his speech concerning her.
Yeah, you know, the vice president was returning to Chicago after having campaigned in Milwaukee earlier in the day, and she was on Air Force Two when her husband, Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman, began speaking at the convention. So the plane actually circled for an extra 15 minutes, we're told, in the sky so she could finish watching his speech. Of course,
none of us should be surprised by any of this. The Democrats have a huge history, a long history of doing exactly this. Again, preaching to us that we should do this, we should do that, and then in practice, they do damn well what they want to do. It's really obnoxious, obscene, and disingenuous. And no matter what the mainstream news tells us, there is some serious friction going on inside the Democratic Party. I can tell you just by clear observation, the Obamas don't like Biden. Biden doesn't like them. You have Obama and Harris that clearly don't get along. She even took off, went to another state during the DNC as Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are giving their speeches to the DNC. It's very, very clear what's going on here. The caption here says, I don't think we can underscore how unusual it was for Kamala Harris and her running mate were not here for tonight. They weren't beamed in even watching the speech. And I think that underscores the very deep division. And I totally agree.
I don't think we can underscore how unusual it was that Kamala Harris and her running mate were not here for tonight. They weren't beamed in even watching the speech. And I think that underscores the very deep division still between Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and that the Biden team still blames Barack Obama, and the wounds are still very raw from removing him.
That's exactly right. There are some very deep wounds just under the surface that they're trying to hide from each and every one of us. And we have to talk about Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. What a radical kook. What a radical nut. Take a look at this graphic with me. Minnesota under Governor Tim Walz. Violent crime surged 30% under Walz's leadership. Police force shrunk by 40%. Nearly 50,000 people left the state between 2020 and 2022, and 22% increase in prices in Minneapolis from the start of Walz's tenure. This is the same guy who hangs around these radical Muslim clerics and calls them great leaders or great teachers, whatever his exact wording was. His wife is a kook. During the riots in 2020, they left their windows open so they could smell the burning tires and whatever else was burning. They talk about the word weird. Folks, that's weird.
What's normally the number one issue they feel is facing the country right now? Finances.
Yeah, cost of living is high. They tell me that they just they want to see a change in inflation, prices. I think taxes are too high. Groceries are too high. Taxes are too high. Gas is too high. It's just too high.
All the immigrants came in and they're giving like the stuff they had for the Americans. They're giving it to the immigrants that's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts black people more than anything. Black men particularly like to work with their hands. They like to drive trucks. You know, those are jobs that, an illegal can come in and underbid him with third world prices and put him out of work.
That's normally the number one issue.
And despite the narrative in the media, I can assure you that each and every one of us, whether you're a minority or not a minority, are feeling the pinch of this economy and the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. That's one thing I like about this news clip is it clearly illustrates everyday folks. They're at a barbershop and you hear people of all stripes, all colors saying, hey, they are killing me with their their economic policies. So, my friends, what do you think? Agree or disagree? Please put it in the comments below. I like to hear what each and every one of you have to say. If you're still with me, might as well subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and please be sure to share this video with each and every one of your indoctrinated friends, family members, whatever. This time of year, right now, it's very important to have whatever uncomfortable conversations we might need to have. This election coming up is extremely important, and it's going to be extremely consequential. We cannot take it for granted. We must all open our eyes, spread this message that I'm putting in this video today. We each have to carry out an active role to make sure we get Donald Trump elected as the next president of the United States. My friends always like to say, keep that mind free, never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.